Hi everybody, Sharyl Attkisson here. I hope you enjoy this special From the Archives edition of Full Measure After Hours. Hi everybody, Sharyl Attkisson here. Welcome to another edition of Full Measure After Hours. Today, alleged conflicts of interest within a top group that gives advice on what we should and shouldn't eat. Quite often I've found nonprofits that have a name that sounds like they do one thing while they actually do something else. For example, Every Child by Two wasn't really a child safety organization looking out for dangers that could threaten children or vaccine risks. It was really funded by the vaccine industry and designed to squelch vaccine safety questions and controversialize any researcher or journalist asking them. Now, by the way, Every Child by Two has been renamed Vaccinate Your Family because why just stick to promoting childhood vaccines when there are so many people to convince to get COVID vaccines over and over and over again? Well, another alleged case of conflict of interest surrounds the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which bills itself as the world's largest group of registered dietitian nutritionists. But what if the things they're teaching and the advice they give are tainted by corporations that make unhealthy food? A watchdog group called U.S. Right to Know did an extensive 5-year-long investigation and unearthed tens of thousands of documents, and they claim it all proves that this dietitians group just serves as a front for the unhealthy food industry that was giving them money. Before we hear details about that in our podcast today, here's some of what the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics says about the findings. First of all, the group says that when it has corporate sponsors, they follow strict guidelines, that the sponsor's vision and mission must align with the Academy's vision, mission, and strategic goals, and that the sponsor's product portfolio must be broadly aligned with the Academy's vision, which is a world where all people thrive through the transformative power of food and nutrition. The Dietitians group says the Academy does not endorse any company, brand, or company products, that it maintains final editorial control and approval of all contents and materials bearing the Academy's name or logo. The Dietitians group says there is clear separation of its messaging and content from any brand information or promotion. The Watchdog Group report says, among other things, that top contributors to this dietitians group have included the National Dairy Council, ConAgra, maker of a lot of popular processed foods, Abbott Nutrition and Laboratories. Those companies make baby formula and products for people who have disorders related to potentially unhealthy food like diabetes and heart disease. Also contributing to the dietitians group, Pepsi, Coke, Hershey, General Mills, Kellogg, the National Confectioners Association, which represents the candy industry, and pesticide manufacturer Bayer Crop Science. The Watchdog Group also says the dietitians group has even invested in the unhealthy food industry, such as in Pepsi and Nestle, but the group itself says while acknowledging they do have some investments like that, they say less than 3% of their investments are in food companies. So now let's hear more about the investigation and report from Gary Ruskin, Executive Director of U.S. Right to Know.
All right. And can you give me just one short paragraph on U.S. Right to Know, what it is and what it does?
We're a public interest, public health investigative watchdog group. We investigate companies and governments regarding failures that hurt our health or our environment or our food system.
Where does your funding primarily come from?
Well, it comes from a bunch of foundations, mostly some individuals. We accept no corporate funds.
We're here to talk about a report, a lot of research it looks like you did, to expose some of the inside or inner workings behind a nutrition group. Can you give me the overview, sort of the top line findings from all of this, and we'll ask some specific questions.
Sure. We were able to obtain about 80,000 pages of internal documents of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which is our nation's most influential nutrition group. They license about 110,000 nutrition professionals in the United States. What we found was that the Academy accepted about $15 million from companies and organizations, from ultra-processed food companies, from pharmaceutical companies, from agribusiness companies. We also found that they had policies to corruptly provide quid pro quo benefits in return for some of those contributions.
What is the basic problem you see with the idea that a nutrition group is accepting millions of dollars from industry groups?
So it's a conflict of interest in that, take a more recent example, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics last year took money from the National Confectioners Association and from Tate & Lyle, which is a big sugar company. And so at a time when our nation is struggling terribly with an epidemic of obesity and type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, it should never, ever accept money from companies who produce products that are causing harm.
When they accept money from an industry like that, is the theory or allegation that they're then taking action to protect the industry, or just simply taking no action to go after that industry as a nutrition threat?
Well, I think there's some of both. There's some of both of that. It's a lot of it is kind of sin of omission sort of thing. For example, when you look at what the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics says about ultra-processed food, what they don't say is don't eat added sugars and don't eat junk food and don't eat candy. And so that's exactly what the ultra-processed food companies want them to say, to stay away from the don'ts.
You also found evidence, if I remember correctly, you found evidence of them giving money to industry.
So not giving money to industry, but actually we found evidence that the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics held stock in ultra-processed food companies, including PepsiCo and Nestle. So this is just off the charts when it comes to a conflict of interest. It belongs in the Conflict of Interest Hall of Fame.
There are also some officials you found serving or working with the nutrition group that had ties to industry that seemed to be a conflict of interest.
Yeah, we found a number of examples. One example of a leader of the Academy who had a conflict of interest is Hope Warshaw, who used to write a column in the Washington Post. And she consulted for the Calorie Control Council, which is an artificial sweetener PR group. And she has worked for a number of public relations firms.
What are some more specifics? The processed sugar industry, or the sugar industry, is one. Can you give a couple of other examples of industries that want to hold sway or would want to hold sway over nutrition guidelines and recommendations? Sure.
I mean, the big ones are the ultra-processed food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, because the pharmaceutical industry has some kind of food-like products that are served in hospitals mostly. And then there's the agribusiness industry. For example, we know last year that Bayer Crop Science gave money to the Academy, and Bayer is the manufacturer of herbicide called Roundup, whose main ingredient, active ingredient, is glyphosate, which the World Health Organization's cancer arm said is a probable carcinogen.
How did this group get its prominence as a nutrition group that certifies people and holds this kind of sway?
Well, it's a very old organization. Because they're so useful to these industries, they are promoted by the industries in some ways, and so it's kind of it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship. It's good for everyone.
When the group started, do you think it started without accepting money from industry, or is this something? And this is something that became more recent as the industry understood the usefulness? Or was it created with the idea in mind that maybe it would be this kind of a group?
So it's a great question, and I don't know the answer to it. I don't know the history from more than half a century ago. But there's no question that over the last, say, 25 years, there has been a kind of a slide into the corrupt swamps of taking money from the ultra-processed food industry. Also, I think there's been a rise in this sort of thing as the ultra-processed food industry has become emboldened and has tried to use its influence more and more and more. And we can see the effects of it in our waistlines and in the rates of diabetes and cardiovascular disease across the country.
How would you describe how large and powerful these industries are?
They're incredibly powerful. They have so many ways of affecting policy and affecting people, whether it's advertising or public relations or lobbying or campaign contributions. They're masters at pulling the strings, and our health shows it.
What do you think could or should be done about an alleged conflict of interest like this?
Well, I mean, what's got to be done is that, first of all, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has got to go clean and stop taking the corrupt money from the ultra-processed food industry. But people have got to demand it and say, look, we're just not going to listen to dietitians anymore until they're honest.
As far as a takeaway, what is it you think the public should know in the big picture?
The big picture is that our nation's dietitian organization, they're not trustworthy for information, and that people need to find better sources of information, sources that do not have conflicts of interest.
Can you recommend any?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are lots of them, but just just make sure that they're not corrupted by the food industry.
If you're interested in learning more on this topic, the U.S. Right to Know Watchdog Group has posted all those documents from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. You can go to usrtk.org. That stands for usrighttoknow.org, and search, or just search online before you get to that website, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics documents, and you can look through those yourself. You can also read more about the response and the criticism of the report from the Dietitians group by looking at eatrightpro.org, eatrightpro.org, and you can search public statements or inaccuracies in U.S. Right to Know article. You can probably just search that phrase, U.S. Right to Know article, and the Dietitians group, or eatrightpro.org, and it'll also come up under there. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and that if you did, you will leave a great review and share it with your friends. Think about pre-ordering my new book, by the way, Follow the Science, How Big Pharma Misleads, Obscures, and Prevails. It's coming out September 3rd, 2024. You can get a signed copy pre-ordered at SharylAttkisson.com. Click the store tab, or just order the book at HarperCollins, Amazon, or anywhere you'd like to order. And while you're at it, visiting the Sharyl Attkisson store, check out our unique products designed for independent thinkers like you, with proceeds funding independent reporting causes such as the ION Awards and the Brechner Center for Freedom of Information. I hope you will watch my full report on the topic we discussed today. It will be on Sunday, March 10th, Full Measure. To find a station near you, go to SharylAttkisson.com and click the Full Measure tab for a list of stations and times, or just watch at fullmeasure.news online. The feed starts around 9:31 a.m. Eastern Time on Sundays, but then it's posted there after. You can watch replays anytime. That's fullmeasure.news. Do your own research, make up your own mind, think for yourself.